Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to RaceFace.Pro and welcome to round 3 of our LMU Season 3 Championship. And this time, we are coming to you live from the beautiful circuit of Algarve International Circuit out in Portimão in Portugal. And the circuit made in 2008, first broke ground in February 2008. The 4.6 kilometer circuit is looking to make things rather challenging for our drivers and seeing how far they are willing to go and where are they willing to push that little bit more. 15 turns of high speed action with hard braking zones, all the sweeps that you can think of that can either work in your favor or if you are used to turn 1 and turn 2 here at Algarve, it will be an absolute nightmare to slow the car down, especially when you're looking at maximum top speed. It is going to be a delightful one here tonight, and drivers are looking to make a big impact considering the championship is up for grabs. So, taking a look at our championship, Chris Stalls currently leads out our Hypercars with Kerabukes in second place. Martin Jacobs holds on to third with that Cadillac Hypercar. He's getting chased down by Henry Mayer, who didn't finish last time out. He will be looking to take that Valkyrie a little bit further up. Chris Carlson from the Stingers Racing out in 5th position. Brandon Kruger in 6th. Henko van den Berg in 7th. Johan Kleinans in 8th position, followed by Fleming Bauer and Jaco Kutzer rounds out our top 10. Mordred Claessens, who has been going out in the Hypercar, has seemingly changed by the looks of it, and seeing that he might have actually dropped out of it. Carl Oosthuizen leads out our LMP3. He's been quite dominant this season. He's hoping to carry that momentum forward. Dion Cup, Dennis Gillett, Lawrence Bondnurse currently holds 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And Anton Lammers, Jean Verveers, Joppie Simons going in, finishing last time out, is currently in 7th with Francois Buerta. Donovan Lehr in 9th position. Ruben Visser rounds out our pack in the LMP3 class. Looking at our GT3 now, this is where it gets a bit interesting because it's the likes of, Esteban Pretorius in 1st place, who's out there in the Lamborghini. He's got Andre Macheka closing down on the back of him in second with 53 points to the likes of Esteban's 68. Jody Cinnamon currently lying in 3rd, been on a consistent effort in his racing. Conrad Martin is keeping him 4th ahead of Johan Bluknote. Vietia Buerta down in 6th. Stanton Augustus in 7th. Graham sitting in 8th. Honor Kraus in 9th and 10th position. William Wentworth, followed by Bago and Bago Krobler, David van Veek, JD Kildenace, Grant Leclerc, Rob van der Heerde, Willem Lacrange, Marcus Friesen, Mike McGear, and going to be a new driver joining in after missing 2 rounds. We will see the likes of Paul Fenter coming in to have a bit of fun. But as we take a look up towards our multiple-time champion in the Hypercar class, Chris Soules looking to put yet a dominating effort this time around. Now, with that being said, he's hoping to make it work out in his favor. However, he's got to remember that Martin Jacobs out in this Cadillac has been on his tail through round 1 and round 2 and looking to make it work yet again. As our drivers are starting off with their qualifying here at the beautiful circuit of Algarve, and is going to be a challenge. Cold tires is going to be a pain for the drivers to get used to at the moment, but the track is rather warm and they will be looking to try and pick that temperature up as fast as possible. And we have got multi-class racing, and let's not forget about that, because this is going to be the first time that our Hypercars and GT3s will have to contend with our LMP3 class out on the circuit, looking to really carry the momentum. Now, the LMP3s have got the same amount of power as the GT3s. They've got a little bit more aero for those faster sweeps. They will be naturally a little quicker. However, it's all about carrying the momentum forward and ensuring that they can keep up the pace, especially around this circuit. Is all about rhythm. You've got to keep that rhythm going. You've got to keep moving forward. Paul Fenter out in the logistical nightmare colors, and good to see that the LNR going and embracing some colors on their car, putting a bit of separation to the usual standard default livery that many do wear, but it's nice to see more and more teams embracing it, coming into their own. And it's good to see you guys out in the virtual grandstands. We have got Duncan Roderick, Stingers Racing, coming in and saying, how's it from the grandstand? It's always wonderful to have you guys out here and being a part of the show. We can't wait to see how it's all going to go. So Crystal's currently putting in the time through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Fastest of all of our hypercars. His teammate, Johan Clemens, will be trying to hope to get a little bit more pace. Well, Henko Vandenberg down in second. Well, he's trying to get a timeout on the board. This is going to be the first flying lap for these drivers, and the first one to get across the line and set a time on the board. A 131.6 by Chris Stalls. A 132.8 in the Ferrari is Henko Vandenberg. Likes of Karabukas moves his way up into second place for the Stingers Racing. Out in the Toyota, but he gets beaten down by Jakub Kutzer, who is in the RTA livery in the Ferrari 499P. Mon Jacobs out in the Cadillac, trying to get to grips with the car. 133.1 is his time. Chris Collison is down the order. He's in 6th for the Stingers Racing Toyota. But look to try and make it work. Carl Oosthuizen leads out the pack for our LMP3 with the likes of Dion Cup and the likes of Jean Verveers going and closing up on one another. Keep an eye on these two. Jean Verveers and Dion Cup have been keeping rather consistent with their fights, and there was a little bit of banter down in the pits of who is going to be quicker than who. Esteban Pretorius hoping to keep ahead of fellow teammate Johan Blicknote, who is currently running in second place. Vietia Buerta going and putting the hammer down for the Delta Negative team. Holds on to third at the moment. He's got David van Veek trying to close up the time. And when Stanton Augustus out of nowhere for the Stingers Racing in the BMW puts himself into third place and puts in a solid effort. Now, I do want to bring attention to a couple of drivers that were racing last night in the iRacing GT3 Championship. One of those drivers, Duncan Roderick, who had a brilliant race in his Porsche, is now in the grandstand supporting fellow Team Tryhard driver that was racing in iRacing last night, Arno Kraus, looking to try and make an impact. And the Team Tryhard drivers are hoping to really see how they're going to go and how they're going to battle their way through the race. And we're also getting some word from pit lane. Anton Lummers is going to be having a bit of a chat with us as well, saying, how's it? Unfortunately, he's got a little bit of a problem and will be sitting out this race. But he does send a good luck to his teammate, Conrad Martin, Treehouse Works Racing, as they're looking to battle their way around. And Anton, if you want to come and say a few words just on air to your teammate and to the drivers out there, you're more than welcome to come through to the commentary box and come and have a short little chat before we kick off into the race. As Anton Lummers, for anyone who doesn't know, been fighting for the championship and hoping to make it work out in his favor. Unfortunately, due to technical faults, is going to be out of tonight's race. But still, Treehouse Works Racing, a tree never stands alone. Johan Kleinutz is a little bit further down, hasn't been able to put a time on the board for the Hypercars, and he is not going to be too happy on this one. JD Kildenace rounds out our GT3s in 26th position. Unfortunately, a couple of drivers haven't gone out as yet. Donovan Laird, Dennis Gillett, Francois Buerta, Bego Frobler, Rob van der Heever, and Grant Leclerc currently sitting in pit lane. Question is, have the teams got those cars ready to be out on circuit come the race, or will they be going and watching from the pits? At the top of the pile, though, Chris Stoltz holds on to first place. Brandon Kruger puts himself into second place with a 131.3 to Chris Stoltz's 130.9. That is incredibly quick around this circuit, and it's all about carrying the momentum through. It's about pushing that a little bit more and see who is going to stand at the top. Likes of Jakob Kutzer hoping to go and give it everything he's got, and Martin Jacobs trying to get a little bit of run as well. And another driver coming in and has been looking to return. Herman Percival coming in and enjoying some chats as well for anyone that doesn't know him at all, as Percy is his nickname and known as. It's good to have him out there and just in the virtual grandstands. Massive welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us here tonight. This is round 3 of the championship, and drivers looking to make it work out in their favor. But I do want to cast your eyes to 2 teammates. Take a look at this. We got the likes of Johan Bluchnote with a 145.6, Esteban Torres with a 145.8. These two are challenging one another. Despite being teammates, they have both gone and said they will put in the fight where they need to go and move forward in the order. The RTA team have been quite consistent in working together, but sometimes gets a little bit out of shape, and you will see a brawl between them. Grimaton, a little bit further down in 3rd place. He's got Paul Fenter trying to make up some ground in 4th place with renewed vigor. Paul Fenter returns to the circuit. It's good to see him out there hoping to make it all work in his favor. But one driver that's not enjoying his qualifying spot at the moment, down in Sector 1. Martin Jacobs just not going and having an easy time out there, trying to figure out what is going to be the big strategy for him. How can he move forward up through the order as that massive V8 sings a song to its people out here in Portimão? That absolutely you can't forget about it in terms of this Cadillac, the sound of it. Much like the Aston Martin Valkyrie that is not here tonight. Both of the Pandacity cars not making it to the grid this evening. Will be going and setting up, but that V12 from their cars tends to make the difference. Inko Vandenberg up in Sector 1, down in Sector 2, now down the main straight, hoping to get out of 7th. 132.3 was his best lap time. Going to give it everything he got. Across the line, was the quickest in the final sector, but unfortunately couldn't get that lap time down to 130. Did improve with a 132.4 this time round, and will be going and digging that a little bit deeper. Carl Oosthuizen still leads out by a second over the rest of the LMP3 field. Likes of Fears and Dion Cup hold on to 2nd and 3rd. Oh, Carl Oosthuizen just losing that rear as it snaps underneath him. For Fears up in Sector 2, wants to keep ahead of Cup. These two have been trading blow after blow throughout the season, and now it's going to come down to who's got the motivation to push that little bit more in qualifying. Or are they going to settle down for the race? Because tonight is something a little different. As tonight, we are going for a full 80-minute race. You heard me right. Every 3rd race, we are upping the time. So last week, they ran a 60-minute race. This time, it's 80 minutes. 1 hour, 20 minutes worth of racing around a very, very quick circuit. Take a look at John Fierzo, a 140.4, a very quick lap time, and he made the difference in that final sector over Carl Oosthuizen. He still holds on to 2nd, but a lot closer this time around, and managed to find time on the table in that final sector. 4 minutes to go. There is still opportunity for drivers to improve, to really bring themselves that little bit closer to one another. The times between each and every one of our classes becoming smaller and smaller. The only drivers in our GD3 class that have been able to get in the 45s is the likes of Bluchnote Pretorius. The rest from 3rd, Stanton Augustus of the Stingers Racing, down to David van Wyk, sits with a 146.7. So David van Wyk hoping to make it work out in his favor. The question is, David van Wyk's here. Is this Martin van Wyk's family member? That I do want to know, because he was racing last night. Conrad Martin, a little bit further down the order, has been keeping consistent. Not a very strong qualifier, but makes it up in the race. And this is the one thing we start to see as our drivers get through the season, of the consistency for some, and others a little bit less so. They can do those hot pushes in qualifying, but when it comes down to the race, the pressure starts to build, especially in a high tension race like this. And multi-class action, a little bit smaller with our LMP3s consisting of 3 cars here tonight from its usual 6. But that being said, there's still a lot of room to make mistakes or improve. William Wentworth continues on his charge. He's down in 13th ahead of Willie the Crunch, along with Marcus Friesen, who's hoping to really pick up the pace. 152.8 for him as he tries to close up. Mike McGeer still putting in the difference and is having a good time with a 149.1. An interesting fun fact about Mike McGeer, for anyone that's involved in sim racing here in South Africa, Mike McGeer actually builds load cell pedals, cuts them, makes them, and gets them up and going. And the driver goes to enjoy. And we're getting some talks coming in from the likes of Percy. No, David is a single child, our adopted little friend. Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you very much. It's good to see you back out there in the grandstands. We'd like to see you out on the track very, very soon, Percy. Martin Jacobs hoping to carry the momentum through in the Cadillac, down in 5th place. 1 minute 30 left of qualifying. Are the drivers going to give it their last little bit for the top spot in qualifying, or are they going to settle down for the race? Kurt Bukes trying to give it everything he's got. Boots it across the line, and the Toyota picks up time in the final sector. A 132.239 was his time. However, lost out on trying to get out of that 6th place, and he has really found something to make up so much time in the final sector. These drivers have got figured out a little bit more pace underneath him. Now, it might not seem much in qualifying, but this starts to give you an idea for the race of how hard you can push when the tires go and give it everything they got. When the tires warm up, when the cars are all sorted out, and when low fuel runs come into play, each of the drivers will be thinking about that big step up through the order. Crystals trying to give it everything he's got, climbs over the crest and gives it everything he can in the Peugeot 9X8, trying to keep ahead of Brandon Kruger. A 130.8 is going to be the time he has on the board. Can he improve as he just has that snap, and that's all she wrote. A major impact into the wall, and the 9X8 goes back to its first design of having no rear wing after that impact, and also going and squashing out the front of the car. Kerabukes and Hinko van den Berg trying to give it their last little push to the line. Chris Collison as well for the Stingers Racing. Carl Oosthuizen calls it quits on qualifying, but it's Jean Fiers up in Sector 2. Can he make the difference? A 140.2 is Carl Oosthuizen for Fiers. A 140.3 was his best lap time. If he can get it right through the final sector, if he can give it that last little push, as he gives all the gas he can, absolutely flat, letting the aero suck him to the ground, John Fiers boots it across the line. Is it going to be better? And he does. He's able to do it. A 140.1. For the first time, Carl Oosthuizen will not be starting in first place with the LMP3s. Johan Blucknote improved in the middle sector. Can he make it work in the final as he comes across the line? And he does. A great improvement for him. A 145.1. And that will be a solid effort to put himself towards the top. David van Wyk will be starting down in 8th as our drivers all start heading back to the pits to get themselves ready for an 1 hour, 20-minute race. Jean Fiers pulled a rabbit out of the hat in qualifying, got close as he could, and got that pass done over Carl Oosthuizen's 140.233. So properly close between them. And I do suspect that we may have a very interesting battle in hand between Fiers and Oosthuizen come the start of the race. But who's going to be leading it out at the end of tonight? 1 hour and 20 minutes is a long time for each of the drivers to really give it their final pushes across the line. Who can be able to stand on top? And that being said, let's take a look at our starting order here for round 3. It is Crystals with Brandon Kruger in 2nd place. Johan Kleinans will start out in 3rd place with Jaco Kutzer, Martin Jacobs, Gerrit Bukes, Hinko van den Berg, and Chris Collison round out our Hypercar pack. Jean Fiers and Carl Oosthuizen will take on first, second, and Dion Kopp will hold on to third. Unfortunately, Dennis Gillett, Donovan Leah, and Francis Buerta unable to get their cars out the garage and will not be on the grid here tonight. Jörn Blicknote will be starting out in first place with Esteban Pistorius, Stanton Augustus, Hamilton sitting in fourth, Vietia Buerta, Jody Cinnamon ahead of Paul Venter, David van Veek, Conrad Martin, JD Kildenace, Arno Kraus, Willie LeCrunch, Mike McGear, William Wentworth, Max Friesen will be rounding out the pack for our GT3s. Unfortunately, Rob van der Heever, Bago Krobler, and Grant McClure not able to go and get their times out on the board, will be sitting back thinking, what do they need to do to gain some points in this championship, to move forward in this championship, as Algarve is ready to welcome the drivers in full racing sprint fashion. It is going to be 4.6 kilometers for 80 minutes worth of racing, 15 corners, and our drivers will be at the ready with 29 ready to start, 29 ready to battle as they start making their way, heading towards the line. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as all eyes peer on to the front of the pack, our Hypercars, Crystals, and Kruger, side by side, will be charging their way through. For the first time, we will have a first Peugeot lockout here in the world of RaceFace and in Hypercar racing as they make their way through gently towards a line, slowly waiting for the opportunity. And it's going to be lights on, lights on, lights on. Oh, the tension builds. The tension builds this incredibly long straight. When do we go? Waiting for the lights. And away we go racing as they charge their way through. Apologies, it's not an 80 minutes and 60, but Crystals takes the inside line, and it's Brandon Kruger that switches around the outside. He's gone too far though, tries to bring it back as he goes side by side with Crystals. Johan Kleinert looks up on the inside, tries to get the pass to work out in his favor. The Ferrari finding some grip out there. Brandon Kruger getting all out of shape as he loses another position to Mon Jacobs, who's up into third, takes the dive for the inside line. Can't quite get it done. Kruger tries to close up on the brakes, and now he's got Jakob Kutzer also tailing in for the fight with Mon Jacobs, and Kleinert look to battle out with that Cadillac rather unsteady underneath him. A little bit further back in our LMP3 class, the Fears leads out ahead of Oosthuizen and Kopp. Down to our GT3s as they make their way through. It is Blicknote and Pretorius with the likes of Quilmerton, Stanton Augustus, Paul Venter trying to also make the climb up through the order as he gets chased down by David van Veek. Jody Cinnamon a little bit further down, also trying to pick up the running pace for him as Vietia Buerta in the Aston Martin has got JD Kildenace going out wide. Willie LeCrunch trying to get the pass on him, couldn't quite get it all hooked in, and Conrad Martin now looking to try and keep that consistent pace with Mike McGear and Arno Kraus on the back of him. William Wentworth and Max Friesen round out the pack for our GT3s. But take a look at this. Mon Jacobs for third place has got Brandon Kruger chasing him down. Kruger hopes to carry the momentum through. Late on the brakes, couldn't quite swing it. And oh, Hingo van den Berg going up very, very wide, losing a lot of time there. And that allows Jakob Kutzer to just slot on through and continue on the drive. Kerr Bukes closing down in the Toyota with Chris Collison, keeping an eye on the back. Moving over to our LMP3s, it is Jean Fears and Carl Oosthuizen keeping those to tail at the moment, with the Fears just keeping that little bit of distance. He's continuing to focus on the long run for his race. Dion Kopp not quite having an easy time out there this time round. Will be thinking of his big moves later on as Pretorius closes up onto Blicknote. He knows that Maton trying to close onto the back of him. The BMW has got a habit of going a little bit later on the brakes and a little bit more solid under braking. Will be going, giving the mid-engines a bit of a tough time out there. Paul Venter has got David van Veek for a bit of company, and Jody is hurling on the back. Now remember, Jody is third in the championship. He needs to try and climb up through the order just a little bit more, but he's got Vietia Buerta keeping him for company. As our GT3 is one of the most competitive classes here in the world of LMU out in RaceFace, and it's still great to see so many drivers just taking that little bit of an edge to push their way forward. And also, it's good to see our Hypercars getting a little bit of love out there, along with our prototypes of the LMP3s. But Martin Jacobs getting a little bit unsteady on turn, and you can see trying to really make that Cadillac nose stick as he keeps his foot on the gas. Kleinon's just a little bit ahead of him, but Kruger constantly putting pressure on the back of him. Looks to try coming by. Jaco Kutzer, who continues on the drive in his Ferrari 499P, wants to look on getting past Brandon Kruger. Two teammates now, and originally were part of the Omnius Gaming racing team, so they know each other. They worked with each other. They know how hard they can push one another in practice from different parts of it. The question is, spawning new colors, is there going to be new ideas on victories? Jean Fiers and Carl Oosthuizen still locking in for battle, and Oosthuizen just not having the easiest time out there. Closes up at a rate of knots, but just can't find the way past. Constantly looking to see if he can get past Carl Oosthuizen by sticking on the racing line. He does peer a little bit to the left-hand side, sitting in those mirrors as Fiers gets a little bit out of shape. Lost a bit of time here. Here comes Carl Oosthuizen, takes a dive on the inside. Can he make it work as they go side by side? Fiers holds the apex. He just needs to slow it down on the apex, and he does. Forces Carl Oosthuizen to slot in behind, as Oosthuizen had no room to try and get past. Some great racing being had between these two, and I don't think it is going to go and end up with a long defeat, as Carl Oosthuizen has a habit of running away in the class. This time, Fiers looks to try and push him that little bit more. They have opened the distance to Dion Karp at current, but they will start thinking about what they need to do to carry the momentum forward. Pretorius and Maton continue their battle with one another. It's constant back and forth, both trying to figure out what can they do to get the edge. The BMW just not quite having the straight line on the Lamborghini ahead. And Blichnote starting to stretch his legs away from Esteban Torres, his own teammate, now being left in the lurch a little bit and having to try and fend for himself. Stanton Augustus up into fourth place for the Stingers Racing. Has got Paul Fenter closing down on him, trying to figure out where he can get on by. David van Veek, however, in the Porsche, starting to have Jody on the back of him. Now, van Veek is going to look to try and hold as tight of an inside line as possible to defend away from Jody. Both going a little bit slow, and that's going to allow Vietia Buerta to get back into the mix. Now, Vietia Buerta loses the rear, catches it. Oh, just catches a wall as well. And that was all she wrote. Oh, I'm sorry, Vietia. I'm so sorry. Commentators curse yet again. If I go back a little bit in history, I think that's how I cost him a championship as well. Oh, man. Not quite what he wanted to have, and not quite what we wanted to see from the Aston Martin driver, but unfortunately the rear just getting a little bit loose out there. Most of these drivers running a low drag aero package on their cars to maximize their top end, to ensure that they can really get the push down those straights through the sweeps and make sure they keep ahead. Now, that also does come with a bit of a problem. You're taking all the pressure off the nose and tail of the car, and it means when you get a little bit too lively on the throttle, it lights up the rears and sends you heading towards the wall. It does make life rather difficult for every single one of the drivers, but that's what makes racing a lot of fun out here in the world of LMU. You got to think about the big pictures when you go driving. Brandon Kruger onto the back of the Cadillac of Martin Jacobs, who continues on the drive, keeping ahead at the moment, and is still looking to battle as he runs. And it's going to be a proper chase as well. We are getting some reports though, and this comes from Percival, who, for anyone who doesn't know, used to be one of the big brains in the Omnis Gaming sim racing team, and was also in terms of strategy. And he has been practicing with a couple of drivers and saying that he did some practice runs with a couple of drivers and found that if he lifts and coasts, they will make it to the end without doing the stop. I don't think the drivers are going to be focusing on that right now, and we'll be seeing what is going to be the big plan. We are getting word as well from Dennis Gillett. Technical issues have been the reason that he was unable to get that LMP3 out onto the circuit. And that is just a gut-wrenching blow for Dennis Gillett, who has also been a solid run for the championship as well. And apologies to hear that, Dennis. And, oh man, it's gut-wrenching to hear. As our drivers continue to figure out what they need to do, we keep an eye on our hypercars as Martin Jacobs, Brandon Kruger keep close to one another. Jaco Kutzer and Henko van der Berg continue on the charge. But, interesting enough, take a look at what's ahead of them. It's the first of our LMGT3s they're having to contend with. And the Ferrari needing to figure out what's the big plan here to try and march their way through. That's possibly, it's not going to be Mike McGear. Just ahead of them is William Wentworth. So that was Marcus Friesen in 14th position. Here is William Wentworth. He's about to get a face full of our hypercars coming through. Does keep a very tight line, especially through this final corner. Does become a little bit tricky as the GT3s will wash out to the outside line. And it means that the hypercars are going to have to switch things around. Does come where you're actually crossing lines as you get on past, which can be rather dangerous. And if you're not expecting it, you can land up in a world of hurt. Jaco Kutzer defending against Henko van der Berg. Both Ferraris running out a bit wide, looking to battle their way through as we do see a lockup coming in for Kutzer. Van der Berg saying thank you very much. He's going to get past and dives around the outside of the Aston Martin. And unfortunately, Jaco Kutzer went in a little too deep into the corner, cost him some time, and will be thinking, what do I need to do to make up that pace? JD Kildenes and David Van Veek trying to close up to Viertia Buerta. We'll see in the mirrors the hypercars and Chris Stills coming on by. Johan Kleinens, Brandon Kruger, Martin Jacobs, as they will be trying to carve their way through the field. David Van Veek and JD Kildenes are fighting for position, and Stills flat out around the outside will take the inside line. Forces JD Kildenes out a little bit wide, and that has brought David Van Veek just that little bit closer to go in for the fight. So each of the drivers now starting to realize this is going to be a very, very tough race. A circuit that lends itself to being extremely quick. It lends itself to outright pace, can lend itself into worlds of problems like what's happening here, as we do have the likes of David Van Veek having Brandon Kruger come on by his own teammate, going and looks for the inside. Martin Jacobs falls to the outside line, keeps his foot on the gas as he overtakes, and now needs to try and figure out how to close the distance between himself and Brandon Kruger. Viertia Buerta sees the cars come on by, and just in the background, Jaco Kutzer trying to close up to Henko van der Berg, who has got a little bit more room to play with. Pretorius and Maton fight their way through. Stanton Augustus and Jody Cinnamon currently running fourth and fifth. Have Chris Stills coming on by as Chris is going to try and dive both of them. He gets it done in a straight line, but right into the back of the BMW of Maton. Maton now needs to get on the gas, giving everything he's got, because there's an opportunity here as Pretorius will get the hypercars diving for his inside line. Will go make life a little bit more tricky as they continue on by, but seems to be rather clear in the straights. Here we go as the rest come on by. Henko van der Berg. Oh, and contact! Contact between the RTA team. Contact and massive impact for Pretorius, our championship leader, into the wall. Our championship leader into the wall. And that is all she wrote. My word, has the championship officially been thrown into controversy? Has the championship been brought into problems? And it was up against his own teammate in the hypercar trying to get through. I mean, my heavens. A monster shunt coming into play there. and not what we wanted to see. The GT3s trying to hold their line, and unfortunately, our hypercars needing to just get on by. That slight understeer coming out, clipping the rear ever so slightly, has just changed the whole state of this race, as now Portimão, who holds on for second, has got Stanton Augustus and Jody running right behind him as they fight for second, third and fourth. As it stands, Paul Fenter trying to close up the gap as well, but I do think there's going to be a radio call of a bit of frustration, but I do really hope that Esteban Torres can get that car back out on the circuit, that the RTA team will be frantically trying to get that car sorted to try maximize the points in this race. So, Baton is currently in second. Blucknote loses his teammate in the GT3s, and a bit of movement coming in. Oh, as Jaco Kutzer nearly into the back of Stanton Augustus, who's just trying to keep that car in check. He didn't quite see Jaco Kutzer in the mirror and lost out that little bit of time. Jody's now closed up, and Paul Fenter battles back in the Lexus as it snaps underneath him, trying to figure out where can he go and where can he pick up the pace. Jody Cinnamon and Stanton Augustus fight for third. Baton opens up the gap in second place. Jody continues to battle back at this point. Championship hopes is still there for him to give it that little bit more of a push. It is going to be a big look coming in for the Stingers Racing, wanting to clear both cars, and that is the likes of Chris Collison getting on by in the Toyota, and he gets right into the back of Baton, and not wanting to interfere too much. Paul Fenter nearly into the back of Stanton Augustus, had to go out a little bit wide as he missed that braking marker just that little bit more. Side by side they go. It is going to be Lexus versus BMW. Is it going to be the turbocharged straight six, or is it going to be the big burly V8? The small block V8 getting ahead, and Jody gets out of shape. Jody has lost the time a little bit there. Here comes Paul Fenter side by side around the outside. Stanton Augustus joins through. He's going to keep his nose firmly locked in. Jody trying to close the door, stuck on the outside. Does slowly bring these cars back in, allowing a little bit of rotation just to force the door shut on Stanton Augustus as our GT3 fight continues. And good to see the RTA team is able to get that Lamborghini back out on circuit. Esteban Pretorius, after a frustrating little knock, now keeps on going to keep the championship hopes alive. And this is where you start going from worrying about your finishing order to just working on consistency. Work on what can you do to try and take the advantage away from the cars ahead of you and move up through the order. For Pretorius, he's very quick. He's very consistent, and he's going to hope to make that work out in his favor. Paul Fenter holds on to third with Jody running out a little bit wide, carries a lot of momentum through. Stanton Augustus dealing with Vietia Buerta as these two are going to be fighting out for third and fourth. Stanton Augustus and Vietia Buerta will look to fight it out for fifth and sixth as they dive into turn one. Paul Fenter, who's been out of the sim for quite some time now, has got Jody looking on the inside. Jody has been improving season after season, now looking for it to work out his favor. Vietia Buerta trying to go around the outside, the inside of Stanton Augustus. Couldn't get that pass done and dusted as we're watching two GT3 battles out on circuit. Stanton Augustus going for the defense, and Jody trying to go around the outside of Paul Fenter. He looks for a possible undercut. Couldn't quite get the up and under, and Vietia Buerta does get past Stanton Augustus as they start to push their way through. They've got to remember, there's still 42 minutes left in this race. They're fighting like this is all or nothing for the final lap. Catching up to our LMP3 star, Dion Cup getting the face full of our hypercars. Mont Jacobs and Brandon Kruger fighting out for third position. Kruger hoping to keep up the run. Look towards the inside of Jacobs. Couldn't quite get the dive done. Had to hit the brakes a little bit harder there. The Cadillac managing just to run that little bit longer in the race. And now a little bit longer into the braking zone. will look to try and clear the likes of the Peugeot. But it is Crystals, Jan Kleinens, Martin Jacobs, Brandon Kruger, Kerry Brooks, along with Henke van den Berg, Jakob Kutzer, and Chris Collison, rounding out our hypercars, as we do see Martin getting a little bit unsteady on throttle. Had to try and bring that car back. Carl Oosthuizen, John Fiers, and Dion Cup currently hold on for our LMP3 class, with Carl Oosthuizen leading out, but not holding the fastest lap time of the race. That is held by Jean Fiers at current. Johan Blicknote and Maton running in first, second, but it is the battle for third that is starting to heat up yet again, because take a look, Paul Fender, Jody, and Viertier Buerta now all within a second of one another. Stanton Augustus a little bit further down, keeps an eye on the battle. This is going to be an interesting time though, because Paul Fenter has not only got to deal with Jody behind him, but former teammate of Logistical Nightmare Racing, Viertier Buerta, looking to try and take in for the fight. And as these three brawl with one another, they will bring Stanton Augustus back into the fray as well. David Van Vake, JD Kildenes, Conrad Martin, Honor Kraus round out our top 10, with Mike McGear, William Wentworth, Marcus Friesen, William Crunch, Esteban Torres, who will round out the last of our runners for our LMGT3 class. And it is absolutely wild out on circuit for every single one of our drivers, and it's going to continue this way right the way through for round 3, as we've just seen topsy-turvy, everything changing during the course of this race. Thus far, the first 20 minutes have been rather interesting across all three classes. However, it is going to come down to who has got the momentum, as Kruger looked for the up and under, couldn't quite get that pass done and dusted. We'll now see the Lexus up ahead, as it's a slowdown for Martin Jacobs. Waits and bides his time. He looks for the inside. He lost out the drive, and immediately Kruger looked to go on the attack. Just had no room on the outside to get it done. Waited out. Martin Jacobs and Brad Kruger clear on by. They see Carl Oosthuizen up ahead. Jakob Kutzer and Henko van den Berg continue to fight their way through, and some experience giving some information, which is rather helpful. Big thank you to him. Viertier, still part of LMU, just on loan for Delta Negative for the RaceFace season. Appreciate that. Always good to know. When you see a change of colours, you always start to wonder during the course of it. Well, if he's on loan, what is he going to do up against the likes of Paul Fenter? Viertier Buerta, who's got quite a few points in the championship, needs to finish as high up as possible, and despite with him being on loan, performance is what's needed, as Paul Fenter currently leads out ahead of him. But take a look, Stingers Racing, Stanton Augustus has clawed his way back into the mix and looks to try and fight his way through. So Viertier Buerta, Paul Fenter, and Jody continue to push themselves that little bit more in the GT3 class, and every single time Stanton hanging in the mix, looking, biding his time, waiting for that opportunity to come in. And that is a bit of a problem, and lockup coming into play for Martin Jacobs, as he was braking for the corner and was getting a little bit uncomfortable on the way through. Once again, having a problem. No way. Please do not tell me it's so, because Brandon Kruger knows this all too well. There's a bit of smoke coming out of this car. It's not under braking. It's coming out of the engine. And this is the Cadillac hurting. The Cadillac is in proper pain. Last season, Brandon Kruger had this in the Ferrari, where he had the ducts closed a little bit too far. It started overheating the motor and started damaging it. It looks like Martin Jacobs has got the exact same problem, and he's losing a bit of time. Brandon Kruger snapping at the heels, trying to figure out where he can get on by, but now knows that in a straight line, that Martin Jacobs is going to be hurting a lot, as he will lose about 5 kilometers. So it's all about momentum. It's all about pushing. Martin Jacobs' engine has taken a hell of a beating, and that little bit more of a hard push is starting to take more and more life out of the car as he continues to try and hold on for third place. Kruger snapping at the heels, look to the inside, over the curb, couldn't quite get it done as they clear the Ferrari. And my oh my, this is going to be a rough race for Martin Jacobs. It's going to be a defensive note, with Brandon Kruger trying to figure out what can he do to keep on going. What needs to be the run here And I wonder if there is going to be the radio call to Martin saying, listen, you've got a problem. Your engine's starting to take a bit of pain. You are going to be running into a bit of problems as Jody gets forced out wide by the Ferrari, and a little bit sunk in deep there for Henko van der Berg. Jody gets the pass, and now, once again, Henko trying to slice his way through. Crystal's trying to get the run as well. Will be trying to slice his way through the field as Paul Venter just ahead of him. Vietia opens the door and allows that pass to happen. He will slowly keep an eye on the fight going on because Crystal's going to go for that inside line and forces the GT3s a little bit wide. Final corner is not where you want to be on the outside, and already Vietia Buerta has Henko van der Berg slam his way through and into pit lane. Stanton Augustus continues on the charge. A little bit further back, William Wentworth and Mike McGear. We're keeping a little bit close. Unfortunately, Mike McGear losing that rear and will be going and trying to figure out. But we have a non-finisher, and that's the team tryhard. Arno Kraus out of the race. That is a gut-wrenching blow for the driver because Arno Kraus had a stellar evening last night in iRacing. But now it looks like an LMU is going to be sitting with a DNF and will be just grating his teeth on what needs to be done. For a driver that's going and really double working, is Martin nearly into the side of Paul Venter. Vietia Buerta having Brandon Kruger taking a look as Martin Jacobs smokes out the likes of Paul Venter, gets ahead of Jody, and now slots his way through. Maton nearly getting a bit of a face full of our hypercars. Jody has Kruger around the outside. This is getting a little bit wild for our GT3 cars, and in doing so has now brought everyone a little bit closer to one another. So Jody now onto the back on Maton. Paul Venter lurks in behind. Vietia Buerta also right there in the mix as Chris Collison trying to pick his way up through the field. Currently lies in 9th overall and 8th in class. He still needs to figure out what needs to be done. Maton and Jody continue to find their way through. Maton, coming from the world of ACC, has been one of the top drivers, even in Monday Night Racing when he first started arriving. Really made a good name for himself out there, and now looks to do it yet again. Vietia Buerta continues on to try and make his way through. He does dive into pit lane, however, as Paul Venter now sees these two brawling behind and will be thinking, what can he do to try and get that pass up and over? There's Sib with renewed vigor. He's coming back in with a fight as he keeps an eye on the rest of the field. Maton holding on to second. Lost track of Blicknote. 5 seconds up the road from him and looks to see how it is all going to work that little bit more. Henko van der Berg into pit lane. Chris Collison gains a position and will be continuing on the drive. 34 minutes left of this race. Dion Karp right onto the chase. Alpha Fears, these two yet again now starting to cross swords. And what we've seen from round 1, round 2 moves on to round 3, where Fears and Karp will battle it out in our LMP3 class, with Fears just getting a little bit more drive on the way through. Maton and Jody once again under braking. Very, very late for Jody as he tries to pick up the pace behind Maton. Paul Venter just continuously battling with the car, snapping underneath him. Going back up to our hypercars. Martin Jacobs, despite an engine that is smoking more than a vapor at the moment. This is unprecedented. We saw it with Brandon Kruger last season. Martin Jacobs, who's running on 6 of the 8 cylinders he's got right now, is still continuing to brawl every which way he can to try and make his way through. And I do think the electrical side of that has pretty much gone up in smoke, and much like as he battles his way through. It's not going to be a software update like you can do on a Tesla. These cars are a little bit more problematic, especially when you're trying to get as much drive in and out through the corners. And Kruger fights to try and close that distance. Every time he tries to make up that little bit of pace, he just can't get the drive. He can't get that nose underneath the Cadillac at the moment and is starting to get a little bit frustrated. You can see lighting up those rear wheels, trying to accelerate as hard as he can to get the drive on Martin Jacobs as they fight out for third in the Hypercar class. Henko van den Berg back onto circuit after his pit stop. Gone and got himself sorted out. We're going to be racing through to the end. Kruger out wide, snaps across, hoping to get ahead of Martin Jacobs. He gets a little bit of a tank slapper, does manage to hold it a bit ahead as Kruger slots in behind. Viertier Buerta is about to have these two come blasting through, and Viertier, who is just keeping a consistent pace after pulling into the pits, is in 12th and wants to try and just focus on saving fuel, saving tires, and giving it that push through to the end. Martin defends deep on the inside, and Brandon Kruger trying to go that little bit further into the slipstream. Martin back to the racing line. Kruger tried to look to get on by, couldn't clear him. Now continues to see that smoke, continues to see the back of the Cadillac, and red mist on both these drivers is becoming more and more prevalent as both drivers have thrown caution to the wind. They're pushing that little bit harder in the race, and it's going to be a big time for Kruger up on the inside. Can he make it work through the hairpin? He does get the pass, but has he got the drive on Jacobs as he gives it everything he's got? The Peugeot leans across the nose of the Cadillac, and it's Martin yielding from the fight. Kruger up into third. Now looks to carry on the drive as Esteban Pretorius continues on his drive from a catastrophic run, nearly having the Cadillac going into the back of him. He does not want to have another hypercar going and investigating the Lamborghini. He's gone from a Lambo to a Ducati in one couple of corners in the early part of the race. He doesn't want to have that happening yet again. As Kruger lined himself up for the pass, Martin Jacobs tried to clear it out as fast as possible. Heading back to our GT3s, it's Baton and the likes of Jody Cinnamon continuously fighting with one another. It's interesting. Baton out there in the BMW M4 GT3 now looks to try and carry as much momentum as Paul Fenter is going to have a look at our first place of the LMP3, and that is Carl Oosthuizen. Remember, they have the same power as a GT3. They've got a little bit more aero and weigh a lot less. They're 900 kilograms versus the almighty 1.2, 1.3 of dry and wet weight of these GT3 cars. Jody trying to go around the outside. Matan going and trying to hold that inside line. Just loses out the drive. Puts the hammer down into the slipstream. And it is going to be rather lucky as Carl Oosthuizen is going to bide his time and only get past down the straight. Baton now looked possibly towards the pit lane. He second-guessed it, rather keep in tow that little bit more. Paul Fenter starting to lose grip of the coattails of these two as they break into turn one. Baton takes a good dive. The BMW really got on the brakes. Forces Jody out wide. Jody has to yield. Drops into third. Baton retaking that second. And Jody needing to hold on to third place. Paul Fenter closed up the gap as well during the course of the fight. Phenomenal racing up and down through the field. And our closest fight is currently these two for our top positions in the GT3 class. Everyone else a little bit more open. Brandon Kruger's cleared Martin Jacobs now, especially as he's gotten that little bit of room to play with. Martin Jacobs, unfortunately, still nursing a car to try and get it through to the line. Paul Fenter closes up to the back of Jody, sees Henko van den Berg now trying to come on by. Henko going to dive on past with that 499P, going to sweep across the outside. Jody gets a little bit of a wake up, and Matan suddenly has a Ferrari holding the apex, and this is going to be perfect for Jody to look on by. Couldn't quite get that pass to happen, but for a moment, Matan could not take that apex the way he wanted to. He had to try and find grip on the outside, out on the marbles, and that became extremely tricky. He had to really think about the strategy on that one. Henko van den Berg a little bit slower through the corners, and this is the one thing about the hypercars compared to the GT3s. They might be quicker, they fast through corners, but they're relatively the same speed when it's all said and done. A quick weave between two teammates. And as Blöcknote just flashes on by to Carl Oosthuizen saying, how's it, buddy? Keep on the going, as both Carl Oosthuizen and Blöcknote lead out their respective classes. Henko van den Berg clears past Carl Oosthuizen to retake 7th overall in the race and will continue on their drive. Back down to our LMGT3s, Matan and Jody continue to try and push themselves a little bit more. Jody Siderman and Paul Venter both run out a little bit wider than planned. Matan holding within track limits at the moment, and makes me wonder, is Jody and Paul going and taking a little bit more liberties on their driving? That might cost them a bit of time. Viertier Buerta clearing past William Wentworth now, as these two looking to battle it out. Interesting enough, as William Wentworth hopes to close that distance as much as possible. He's in 11th position in class, with Viertier Buerta currently holding in to that top 10. The best lap time of both, Wentworth with a 149.7, who hasn't gone into the pits. Now needs to identify what is his game plan here to go that little bit more. Viertier Buerta, his fast lap time was 146.69, and will be hoping to give himself that little bit more room to play with. Grimaton runs out a bit wide. Jody takes a little bit of a tighter line, trying to figure out where can he get the drive. The interesting is who's going to pull the trigger first as we're getting closer and closer to the end of this race. And we do know that if you lift and coast, there is a possibility that you might be able to see it through to the end without a pit stop. That being said, I don't think Matan, Cinnamon and Fenta are going and lifting and coasting at any point of this race. They are continuing to drive. Chris Stalls, our leader of the Hypercars, clearing past Stanton Augustus, who holds on to 5th position. Kruger up into, it's Kleinans into 2nd, dives on past the likes of David van Veek. Kruger still opens the gap to Martin Jacobs at the moment, who you can see every time on the power is starting to get that plume of smoke coming out of the engine bay. Starting to feel it more and more as they try and fight their way through. And Crystals opens the door, and take a look at that. Crystals open the door on Matan, and Jody took it. Side by side they go, wheel arch to wheel arch, as Matan trying to battle back. Jody trying to close the door, gets a little unsteady. He tries to slam it shut in front of Matan. He gets it perfectly done. And now Paul Fenter comes into play. Our leader of our Hypercars has just cost Matan some time. And now Matan looks in the rearview mirror to see the logistical nightmare racing machine of Paul Fenter and Johan Kleinert, second of our Hypercars, looking to come through. He does look for the inside line. Paul's going to go out wide. He's going to keep his foot on the gas. He loses that little bit of time. Matan couldn't quite go for the apex, and yet again will start to have time cost by our Hypercars. What a drive at the moment for Matan to still keep that relative pace, as we do see Kleinert takes a very, very wide line to clear past the likes of Jody, who has now opened up the gap to both the BMW and Lexus behind. Paul Fenter fishing for a little bit of grip behind. We'll see Brandon Kruger closing up, and also the likes of Jean Verfiers, our LMP3, getting ahead of the Stingers Racing Machine of Stanton Augustus, will be looking to close up as well. Martin Jacobs, who is desperately trying to close the distance between himself and Brandon Kruger ahead, as he will run into the back, as Paul Fenter getting ahead of Matan. We just missed that overtake, but now Matan down into 4th position, will be looking ahead of what he needs to do. Jacobs late on the brakes, trying to make it work, gets right behind the Porsche of Jody at the moment, who currently holds on to 2nd place in the LMGT3 field, and continue to battle their way through. Jaco Kutzer out of the race. Arno Kraus out of the race. Jaco Kutzer from Team RTA, unfortunately, looked to be that little bit of contact earlier on, has posed significant more damage than we all thought, and unfortunately has taken him out of this race, and it will be trying to figure out what is that little bit more in the game to try and score some valuable points. Mike McGeer finding out with JD Hildenace, the two Aston Martins looking to have a bit of fun. They do slow down a little bit as Mike McGear dives into pit lane. JD Kildenace will continue on the drive and will say farewell to the Ferrari. That was the likes, wasn't Henko van der Berg? That must have been, it had to be Henko van der Berg actually. As, no it wasn't. That must have been Kleinans that cleared him. Apologies, the 499P of Johan Kleinans' second place car managed to clear past them. And now looks to carry on his drive. So Mike McGear and William Wentworth both went into the pits. Wentworth coming out of pit lane will now continue on his drive. McGear waiting to get a service done on his car, will be looking to rejoin in the race and hoping that the undercut is going to work out in their favor. We do see the Aston Martin in the background. With 21 minutes and 34 seconds to go in this race, here comes the likes of Jean Fierce up on the inside of Jody. Can go a little bit late on the braking. Paul Fenter going and really pushing his brake markers in a little bit deep there to try and close up to the Porsche of Jody, as the little Lexus will look to fight it out against the dominating force of the Porsches. But Jody, who is in the fight for the championship, has got everything to lose here. Paul Fenter, who has not scored a single point this season, this being his first full-on drive for the season. Last time out, he was working through a gearbox issue. This time round, he is fighting for second place while holding on to third. Remington down into fourth, losing that little bit of time to them, will be scratching his head. Will the undercut maybe be a better option during the course of this race to try and get ahead of the rest of the field? Blicknote, long since checked out, 5 seconds ahead up the road. So it's Chris Stalls, Jan Clans, Brandon Kruger, Martin Jacobs, Kerry Bukes, Chris Colson, Henk van der Berg, holding out for our Hypercars. LMP3s is Carl Urstation, John Fiers and Dion Cup, Johan Blicknote and Jody Sedderman, along with Paul Fenter, hold the top 3 of our LMGT3s with Grimaton, Stanton Augustus, David van Veek, Conrad Martin, Marcus Friesen, Vierti Buerta, JD Kildenace, William Wentworth, Willie LaCrunch, and Mike McGear following a little bit further behind and running out our pack after an earlier incident, but still keeping on going. And I take my hats off to him. He's still pushing. Esteban Pretorius, after a solid impact with the wall, after a light touch from our Hypercars at a relatively high speed, might I add, that turned that Lamborghini into a Ducati. And quite not the way that Lamborghini is intended to go two wheels. They haven't quite tried that as yet. Who knows? We might see a Lamborghini bike. Paul dives on the inside of Jody through the hairpin and all just gets a little bit loose under power. Jody does get the run, however, but can't clear the Lexus. Paul up into second. A little bit more comfortable taking those dives on the inside through the hairpin and started showing it more and more. This time round, Jody was holding on to second, now down into third. We'll have to put back in for the fight. William Wentworth, seeing Willie the Cringe out there in the Ferrari 296, who's been keeping a consistent pace at the moment, hoping to move his way up. Viertia Buerta and Marcus Friesen going and seeing the likes of our Hypercars come through as we see the smoking bandit himself, Martin Jacobs, trying to push that a little bit harder in the race. And unfortunately, Martin Jacobs not having an easy time out there, trying to get past Carl Oosthuizen to close up to Brandon Kruger, but just not having the drive on the LMP3s through the corners. Will have to sit until he gets on the power. Paul Fenter and Jody open up the drive as they continue on. Claire Bukes and, sorry, that was Chris Collison coming by. The Stingers Racing team looking to keep up the momentum between them. Wentworth opens up to allow our Hypercars through and immediately has Willie trying to close up that gap every step of the way, trying to figure out what is the big plan here to work out for them. Marcus Friesen is coming out of pit lane, and is it going to be too late as Willie and William Wentworth coming back at him? And it is going to be William Wentworth and Willie Lafrange getting ahead of Marcus Friesen. The undercut worked to get that little bit of a climb, and Marcus Friesen, who's just leaving pit lane now, will be deeply concerned on his drive. We do, however, show Mike McGear has not left pit lane, and it looks like he has called it quits with the Aston Martin. Something just not happy with that car. William Wentworth defends the inside line. Willie Lacrunge not able to get on by. will be trying to push out a little bit more as they continue on the drive. They do you think that is Conrad Martin? Yes, it is Conrad Martin in 7th position, looking to lap them again through the field. Question is, can he clear this fight that's going on? There's blue flags waving, but the rules say you're allowed to keep yourself on the racing line. You have to be predictable, and you can't fight the overtake, but it's up to the faster car to clear you without any issues. Now, for both Willie and William Wentworth, not wanting to lose that time, they're wanting to try push that a little bit harder, close the distance, and see if they can get into that top 10. At the moment, William Wentworth holding on to 10th position, with Willie the Crunch currently holding on to 11th in our LMGT3 class. They're all trying to figure out what is the big plan here. How far can they go in this race? 16 minutes, or 16 and a half minutes left of this race. Drivers still trying to figure out how can they push themselves that little bit more. Our leader of our Hypercar class coming through, Chris Hills, Johan Kleinans, Brandon Kruger, Martin Jacobs, Gerrit Bukes, Chris Colson, and the likes of Henko van der Berg hold on to our top 7. Stills runs out very wide to try and clear the likes of that Lexus as he continues to try and get a lap in. Now, where we talk about our virtual energy, this is a virtual tank that helps BOP the cars to ensure that all pit stops come into place. Not only you've got your actual fuel coming in, but you have a virtual tank that you also need to keep an eye on. This just helps with a bit of BOP on the cars and with each of the different manufacturers. The only cars that are able to regenerate virtual energy, however, is our hypercars, and that is under braking. They're able to bring all that energy back that it's usually lost under braking back into the battery. However, they have to keep an eye on it. As Crystals, Johan Kleinans sitting on 11% at the moment, Kruger on 50, Jacobs on 19, Gerrit Bukes currently sitting on 13, Chris Collison on 43. We have seen he's gone into the pits along with Van der Berg, have gone into pit lane. Unfortunately, Kutzer is going to be a non-finisher for this race, having to retire the car. We'll try and get a little bit of information from the team of RTA of what exactly happened that has got them out of the running. Looking at our LMP3 class, however, it is the likes of Carl Oosthuizen who leads out the pack. He's got the likes of Jean Fiers and Dion Cup right trying to close the distance. Jean Fiers currently holds the fastest lap time in the LMP3 class with a 141.163 to Carl Oosthuizen's 141.199. So Carl Oosthuizen just not able to close that gap, and unfortunately Dion Cup with a 141.847 just not finding his feet here on the circuit, and will be thinking, what can he do? Take a look at this interesting fight that's just brawled on, and that is Johan Kleinans, who was originally running in second place. He's now lost out a little bit of time. Come out, and Martin Jacobs, a little clip on the rear. He's able to save the car up against Kleinans. Kleinans felt that little bit of a knock. He was able to keep that wheel straight, but for Martin Jacobs, he was catching the tail, flipping around him, and started feeling the pain. Question is, did the likes of Kleinans pit? No, he did not. So a mistake must have happened that cost Kleinans some time, that really threw him back into the field and allowed Kruger to take that second place away. Martin Jacobs trying to hang in for that top 3 as Kleinans fights to keep control of the Ferrari, not having an easy time out there. With Jacobs trying to nurse a car that we do know is feeling some damage on the engine gearbox after a little bit of a problem going on. It looks like the smoke has cleared. So whatever's gone on with the car, smoke has most certainly cleared off the back of it. Was there some little work and tweaks done to the engine, or has whatever finally given up the ghost is no longer attached to anything that is moving? And that means that the car is now just running on what it has, only the combustion motor to carry it through. The overheating might have... No, there it is. There it is. There's the smoke screen that we have been keeping an eye on all race, getting thicker and thicker lap after lap, and making them a little bit more of a concern Martin Jacobs to just try and see it through to the end, holding on to a prayer. And if you want to talk about the team that are going to utilize duct tape, cable ties, and everything they can, well, that is going to be the Cadillac team at the moment. I do want to point out, good climb up in the positions, up 2 places after an earlier incident. Esteban Pretorius, who was a little bit further down the order. Now Pretorius, who has been slowly but surely trying to pick up the pace, has tried to get a little bit close towards the sharp end after his contact early on in the race, has managed to get ahead of Marcus Friesen and Mike McGear. Mike McGear back out on circuit after a very, very lengthy pit stop. He's able to keep on going. Marcus Friesen, who had an early pit stop, this seems like Esteban Pretorius had a unintentional undercut after that damage. He's up into 12th. William Wentworth and Willie Lecrunch still keeping close to one another. Will start to take a look back towards a relative, seeing that 20 seconds behind is the likes of Pretorius, who will want to desperately come on by. Remember, this has now gone from a race of trying to push that a little bit harder to get a victory to now trying to figure out how can one salvage points. Kleinans and Jacobs continue on their way by. Maton now ahead as Paul Fenter pulls into the pits and getting his pit stop underway. Stanton Augustus will gain a position as well as Maton going that little bit longer in the race. Blicknote and Jody Cinnamon still hold on to first and second. Both have not dived into the pits as yet. Both will be considering when do they do it as we head into the 10 minutes and 40 seconds left of this race. It's all going to be eyes forward as we do take a look over to the virtual grandstand. Jacques Ever coming in from Team SBR, raced last night, going in casting a bit of joy and a bit of celebration to our drivers out there in the LMU world as they continue to fight on. Jacques Ever having a great first heat. Second heat was a little bit of a rough one, 31st to 7th. Still is no easy feat as it was a full reverse grid in our iRacing GT3 Championship. I said ACC, that's tomorrow evening. As first place, Jan Blicknote sees the likes of Kleinans come on by, and Martin Jacobs try to keep his foot in it as well, continuing to fight and claw his way through, continuing to try and apply the pressure to the likes of Kleinans as it stands. Baton holds on to second with Stanton Augustus holding on to third. David van Wyk will carry on his drive in fourth position. Conrad Martin up into fifth. Paul Fenter out of pit lane is in sixth position ahead of Vietia Buerta, the lone driver from LNR, but the Delta negative driver. We're going to just call him a Delta negative driver for the season because that's what he is. For this season, he's Delta negative. He has got all the tires there. He's got the livery. And once you're wearing the Delta negative PJs, it's very difficult to take them off. It's almost like they velcroed on. David van Wyk now continues on by. Stanton Augustus into pit lane. Van Wyk up into third. Will be considering his options as we get big problems coming in. Jody Cinnamon out of the race. Jody Cinnamon is out of the race. Our Porsche driver that was fighting in second place is out of the race. Jody has had a problem. What on earth has gone on with that car? It was running beautifully. It was running well. But now it has changed the entire ball game of the race. Blicknote holds on to first. Maton into second. Van Wyk into third. Augustus coming out of pit lane. Conrad Martin into the pits. Paul Fenter is into the pits yet again. Paul Fenter into the box. Did the pit stop go wrong for him? That he's unable to get it through, and a big mistake coming in for one of our GT3s. And who on earth? That might have been... Was that William Wentworth? Possibly so. That got a little bit out of shape there. No, it wasn't William Wentworth. Apologies on that one. It was Marcus Friesen, I presume, that started getting a little bit out of shape. But big talking points here. Paul Fenter, a pit stop gone wrong, cost him the top running order. But with all eyes aiming to the front, Martin Jacobs dives into pit lane to get some work on his car. And we did see a little bit in the background, Jody's car looking a little bit second-hand, possibly a bit of contact that landed with damage to the car. Crystals comes on by, retaking the lead of the race. Jacobs into the pits. Here comes Kruger, though, as he keeps the drive on. Kruger hoping to really make it work, as Jacobs went that little bit later in the race to see if he can try and take a top spot. However, it has cost him dearly as he falls down into third place. His next problem is going to be coming a little bit back. That's actually Johan Kleinans into the pits. Kleinans into pit lane. Now, trying to get some work done to his car. Maton leaving pit lane. But Kleinans drive through pit lane. Apologies, that wasn't Jody that we saw in the background. That was the safety car parked out. This is a drive-through for Kleinans. Kleinans with the drive-through has cost him third place. And now, Gerrit Bukes cleared him on. Now in fourth place and continues the run. So the Stingers Racing, keeping that consistent pace, will have a run. Kleinans, who got that drive-through, pushed that little bit harder. Unfortunately, taking the hammering in the race. But big talking points at this point. Jody, who was fighting for second in the LMGT3, is retired. Jaco Kutza, down and out. As Ono Cross, unfortunately, an early retirement for him, will not be seeing the line. And this is going to be a wild, wild note. 5 minutes and 55 seconds remaining. Johan Blutnoot continues on the drive, hoping to stretch out the gap a little bit more. And his former teammate with him, Herman, going and saying, let's see how much he saved in fuel to try and get this car across the line. But with Brandon Kruger into second, Martin Jacobs into third, that is going to keep the championship well enough alive in the hypercars. Carl Oosthuizen has not gone into the pits, so is Jean Fiers and Dion Kopp. The LMP3s have got enough in the tank to run the full hour. This has been one of the tricky parts about the LMP3s, as they can lengthen themselves out a little bit more. They can push that a little bit harder and see it through to the end. The question is, how long can they push? Because at the moment, this man over here, Jean Fiers, still holds on to the fastest lap of the race, and Carl Oosthuizen hasn't been able to break that 141.163 set by Jean Fiers at the moment. Esteban Pretorius opens up the gap, allowing Jean Fiers to come on by, and will utilize a little bit of that toe. Down the straight he goes, and still a lot on the cards for every single one of these drivers who continue to put in some tremendous place. Kleinans not having an easy time out there. Henko van den Berg clearing Esteban Pretorius now, looks to get past Jean Fiers. Look towards the inside line, a little bit of a lockup as he aimed for the right-hander, sunk it in a little bit too deep there, gets flat onto the power, and unfortunately has slowed up quite dramatically. So something has definitely gone on, that he wasn't able to get that car sorted, and is now just trying to generate as much heat as he can. And this is going to be a wild, wild moment yet again. Blutnoot continuing on his drive, yet to go into the pits as he continues to stretch open that gap, and that is a bit of a telling sign for the lifting and coasting to try and push that a little bit more. Has he got enough in the tank, both in virtual energy and physically? Has he got enough for the next 3 minutes and 40 seconds? He's got a huge gap to Maton, 40.5 seconds adrift is Maton in second place. David van Veek looking to carry the momentum forward, will be looking at a third place here. He's going to be smiling ear to ear, that is for certain, but he is needing to keep it all in check, because Stanton Augustus is still 2.7 seconds behind, trying to close that distance. Vietia Buerta going and taking a look in his mirror, sees Conrad Martin behind him. Two former teammates in years gone past, rejoining each other out on circuit, with Conrad Martin keeping a nice and easy drive. Does spot Brandon Kruger behind him. Kruger's going to wait a little bit, doesn't want to push too hard, looked possibly for the inside line, and Conrad saying, no buddy, that's my line, I'm going to hold that, you got to wait for the opportunity to get past me. William Wentworth fighting out for position as Esteban Pretorius looking to claw his way into the top 10. Stanton Augustus late on the brakes, goes and gets himself a little bit lost in the sauce there. That's helped out Wentworth, and Pretorius dives for the inside. Pretorius knocks doors. He's into the wall. Pretorius knocked doors with Wentworth, unfortunately, into the wall, damaging the car. Couldn't get the pass, and that has cost him some time yet again. Try to get the drive underneath him, and no room for error, unfortunately, led to both needing the same piece of time. Virtia Buerta keeps about a second ahead of Conrad Martin as we do see the Stingers Racing coming on by. That is the 22 of Chris Colson, hoping to try and keep that drive at the moment, with likes of Johan Kleinans holding on to 5th place, and a bit of a change coming in as David van Dijk up into 2nd, Maton off into the dirt, Maton off, and it looks like a world of problems for him. In the final 1 minute and 30 seconds, Maton going from 2nd is falling down the order. What has gone on with the car? And they had to tow it. He's out of the race. 1 minute and 30 seconds left of the race, and failure on the BMW of Maton, who will not see the end, and he will join the likes of Jody Cinnamon and Otto Kraus and the LMGT3s on pit wall. Jaco Kutzer, the only one from the Hypercars who will not see it through. Johan Blechnow, David van Veek looking to take a 1-2 here. Stanton Augustus from the Stingers Racing is going to be having a big smile on his face because he's up into 3rd. He's pushing that little bit more and will be standing on the final spot on the podium. Lady Luck smiled in his favor, and for the first time this season will be standing on the podium. 6th in round 1, 7th in round 2, and what a jump. By just keeping it consistent, will be coming into 3rd if he can hold the gap to Conrad Martin, who will be trying to close that distance. And this is all or nothing for drivers. It is all or nothing for a hard push as Crystals slows the car down, looking to slice his way through. Leads out overall. Virtia Buerta coming out of pit lane. He served to drive through. But Crystals blasted away at the start. He was able to clear the distance, and Crystals looking to take the victory in the Hypercars to strengthen his lead in the championship, taking his 2nd time out on the top of the podium this season. 3rd in round 1, 1st in round 2, and a victory here at Algarve for the Hypercars. The champion continues his reign a little bit longer. Brandon Kruger fought his heart out for a long time and now crosses the line in 2nd place for the RTA team, and especially after a devastating run last time out, he's able to get himself out on the podium. Martin Jacobs, despite everything, fights the Cadillac back into 3rd place and will be giving it everything he's got. 4th place, Kurt Buchs with Johan Kleinans, Chris Colson, and Henko van der Berg. Carl Oosthuizen will take the victory in our LMP3s with Jean Fiers in 2nd place. Blocknote will take the victory in the LMGT3 field. Gets past Virtia Buerta and has smiled all the way on this one. What a drive on his part with absolutely no pit stops. He sees it through to take the victory. Van Veek will hold 2nd place, making a 1-2 for the RTA team in the LMGT3. Stanton Augustus takes on 3rd, along with Conrad Martin in 4th, and top 5 going to Paul Fenter. Virtia Buerta finished up in 6th. JD Kildenace in 7th. William the Crunch, William Wentworth, Esteban Pretorius managing to lock in that top 10 ahead of Max Friesen, Mike McGear. Grimmerton unfortunately going and being a DNF after his drive. Jody Cinnamon and DNF. Jaco Kutzer, Arno Kraus, unfortunately not able to see it through to the line. Wow, oh wow. What a drive from all our incredible drivers out there. And drama filled for our drivers. Maton in the last 1 minute 30 having a failure on the car took him out of 2nd place. And I know is going to be absolutely devastated on that one, as all would be after a solid fight for over an hour and eventually managing to get himself into second place, and it all comes smashed across as the BMW could not see it through to the end. What a turn of events, folks, here in our RaceFace.Pro LMU Championship Round 3. And we have seen everything coming into play. And wow, oh wow, we're going to see if we can try and catch a couple of our commentators, of our drivers, to come and have a chat to us and give us their thoughts on the race. We're going to see if we can try and pull a couple of drivers. Also, those that might not even come in first, but still had a good drive out there. And let's get a bit of a feel from the rest of the field. And, wow. Great racing. Herman saying, glad we ran that lift practice last night with the likes of Bluchnote. And definitely it worked out in his favor to be the only of our GT3 cars that was able to get it through to the end of the race without needing to pit, saving both fuel and virtual energy on the car to see it through to the end. As what a race of note for them, and holy moly, what a race. What a race. David van Wyk coming out through the field and started at the back towards roughly about 16th, 17th, and he was able to lock in for second place. And David van Wyk, I see, is standing out in the virtual grandstand. So Van Wyk, I just want to point out, you're requested to be in the commentary box. I mean, it's your first time out here on the podium with us in the LMU Championship, and it will be great to have a chat to the likes of our second place driver after a great drive on his part and being part of the RTA team to take a second place right behind Bluchnote after a really hard effort between the drivers. So great to see everyone putting in that extra bit of work to try and go that little bit further in the race and to give themselves that little bit more of a climb. So we're going to have a chat to a couple of drivers during the course of this, and we have got our fifth place driver of our GT3s who come and have a chat to us, Paul Venter, to come and give us his thoughts. Paul Venter, welcome to the commentary box, and renewed vigor coming in for the race. How are you feeling after that, taking a top 5 on your return back to the grid and having to fight your way in quite a battle throughout it all? We had Stanton Augustus, we had the likes of Jody Cinnamon, we had the fights of Hermaton. It didn't look easy out for them.
Yeah, it was a good race until I had to pit. Sadly, my daughter woke up and came to tell me she woke up, and then missed the pit box, had to reverse, forgot to put the pit limiter back on, and then got myself a nice little stop-go 10 seconds. So, yeah, it was a great race up to that point. Great battles. But yeah, it was good fun being back on the grid. So yeah, there was at least finished the race this time, you know. So that's always a positive.
Well, we were wondering why that second pit stop came to be, because it looked like it was aiming for a podium. But take us through the fight that you're having, because it looked like there was no room for error, and you had both the Hypercars and LMP3s inserting themselves into a four-car fight.
Yeah, no, look, Vietia at one point, he was like, no, we're holding him up. He's going to pit early. And then he short-fueled himself, so he took himself out of the equation. But yeah, I kind of was just hanging back, hoping someone would make a mistake or the hypercars would do me a favor, because it really was just, it was so close. It was nice and clean, but yeah, there was a few moments where the boys were side by side, and then you have either a hypercar or a P2 or a P3 sticking their nose in. It was quite chaotic at times, but yeah, it was good fun. I mean, reasonably good respect between the drivers, I think. One or two where I saw a hypercar outbrake themselves trying to outbrake a GT3, but I guess that's part of the multi-class agenda. So yeah, but it was good fun. I absolutely enjoyed that.
Absolutely wonderful, wonderful stuff. And before I let you go to enjoy the celebrations and to make sure a little one has gone to bed, anything you'd like to say to our sponsors here at RaceFace.Pro, to the admins, to the drivers and teams that were out on the track or supporting in the background, but most importantly, to the amazing petrol heads out in the grandstands that got to see you out on circuit with renewed vigor, taking your top 5.
Yeah, just, well done to RaceFace admins, and, as always, thanks to the sponsors for their support. You can see the improvements. The quality of the racing looks much better, very improved. We all know I'm quite a critic of RaceFace when it comes to our driving standards. Big ups to the admin team who have made vast improvements and changes, and has made it a place where I think a lot of guys are starting to eye to come back racing. So now we just have that pesky 38 car grid slot, which LMU needs to increase so that we can be more cars on the grid.
Always going to be an interesting one. And if anyone doesn't quite know, Paul Fenter is a safety inspector. And he's quite a good one. He always checks the walls around the racetrack, and not only in virtual, but he gets to check it out in real life. But Paul, thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you, and congratulations to get yourself in the top 5 for our LMGT3 field.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Cheers.
As a dad objectives have to come into play, and sorting out the little one is first to come into play. Well, with that being said, let's bring in our 3rd place of our LMGT3 field, Stanton Augustus from the Stingers Racing. Stanton, welcome to the commentary box. First time this season managing to stand on the podium. How are you feeling about that one, buddy?
Hi, Stephen. Hi, guys. It was tough out there. Portimão is not my favorite track, but I managed to get to the end, so that's all that matters.
Take us through the first start of the race, because you were in a fight up and down through the field. You had to really get your teeth in it, and it didn't look easy out there. Likes of Maton was around. We saw Paul Fenter. We saw Viertia Burta. We saw Jody Sederman. We saw so many battles coming in, and it looked like you were hanging in for the first half and then decided to get a little bit of room between you and the rest of the drivers. But that first little bit of action, how was it out there being in a forecast battle?
Yeah, first of most, I thought I qualified quite well. But then obviously, the start, P3 was okay. For some reason, I just lost all rhythm. I was doing okay for a couple of laps, and then, I was not in sync with the car. And I mean, the guys around me are quite good racers. And, I just thought to myself, okay, let me just back off a bit and, bide my time. Portimão is a track where it's a high tire deck. Fuel saved a bit, but elevation, this track is really demanding. But some good battles out there. Respectful battles when there was. So quite happy to finish where I did. I consider myself a bit lucky there, a few retirements. But I think patience, abiding your time in a track like this, just pays off at the end.
And with that being said, let's talk about a bit of a scary moment that you had on circuit, where it landed up with 2 hypercars splitting you down the middle, and that was heading into a corner. What was running through your mind at that moment? Just having no room on the outside, and naturally a GT3 car that wants to drift outside with the BMW and can't even go for the apex, because now the hypercar's sitting there doing relatively the same speed.
Yeah, no, scary as hell is what you see on stream as what you've seen it is. Scary as hell, yeah. But yeah, I've done a lot of endurance racing on this track. I've got a bit of experience when it comes to hypers, either being on your left or on your right. But it's a little bit difficult when you cannot make apexes, and the guys are, but racing is racing, and also you got to assess the situation when something like that happens, and then I think most probably just stay calm and cool and just stay in control with the car and don't spoil anybody else's race. But scary moments there.
The moment you got to be like a duck. Cool, calm, and collected on the top, but absolutely paddling like mad, trying not to drown at the bottom. But before I let you go, to enjoy the celebrations on your third place with the Stingers Racing, first time out on the podium here in the LMU Championship for the season. Anything you want to say to the sponsors, to the teams, to the drivers out there, to everyone out in the virtual grandstands, and to the Stingers Racing, who's come out in force cheering you on?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, Stephen, and the commentary team, for the entertaining commentary. It's always been a pleasure to hear you guys out on stream. Also, thank you to, the RaceFace admin and, to all the wonderful sponsors, for putting this races together, the series championship together. I think, without these guys, this wouldn't be possible. So, a big thank you there. Also, we appreciate all the time, the effort that goes into these, events, and we know it's not easy for you guys to, present something that's for us. So we're really grateful there. Also, a massive shout out to the virtual petrol heads out in the virtual grandstands. We definitely feel your support out on track. So thank you so much for, all the support out there. I want to say a big thank you to my team, Stingers Racing, my teammates, my manager, Simray Bucas, the wife of Herod Bucas, Chris Collis, also being my teammate. We've been together for quite some time now. I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually race at this level, and I'll be forever grateful. So, thank you for hosting, guys. Really appreciate it.
Now, I think the added one of finally got that well-deserved podium spot. Stan to the Gustas, congratulations on scoring yourself a big win here tonight, getting a third place and moving yourself up in the championship.
Thank you.
Stan to the Gustas of Stingers Racing putting in a stellar effort on his part. That being said, first time out on the podium, it's not only just for one, but it's for two. David van Wyk from Team RTA. David van Wyk, welcome to the commentary box. And my friend, a second place on the cards. How are you feeling after having to brawl for quite some time at the start of the race?
I don't know what happened there. I think the other guys had a worse race than me because I did not have a good quali. I had two spins. I just had to save fuel. I saw I was keeping pace with Johan on in the front. So I thought if I keep that up, I might make a few places. I did not expect until second place.
Well, it's still a incredible drive. We know it was incredibly hot out there, and with the Porsche naturally being such a twitchy car on a high-speed circuit of Portimão with extreme heat, how was it to drive the car? Was it like holding on to an absolute wild stallion, or was it a little bit more settled and easy to drive to get your rhythm?
It wasn't too bad because we were saving from green, so I didn't have any. There was no place on track where I was pushing the car to its fullest. Just trying to make up that pit time. My pit stop was only 7 seconds. And I think that's what gave me the upper hand over the rest.
And now to go right back, that last 1 minute 30 to see that there's an opportunity to get second place. What was running through your head when suddenly the call on the radio goes, "You're in second"?
I was actually in third place trying to catch Guillaume in front, and I bended around one of the hairpins, slight spin, half a spin, and then something happened to him, and I think he did not finish the race somehow. So it should have been his second place. Don't know what happened there, but we're happy we made it. After the first two races, bad luck, we needed something to get us back on top.
Well, honestly, when they say lady luck smiles on one, misfortune follows the other, but still, you fought your way to the second place, and don't let that be taken away from you. It was well deserved considering the fights you were involved in. That being said, is there anything you want to say to the drivers, the teams, to the admin, and most importantly to our sponsors out keeping the series alive. But the biggest point of it all, our virtual grandstands that cheer on every single time, and the RTA colors getting shown out here in Portimão.
First of all, thank you to you for the stream. Without you, this wouldn't be half as fun. Going back and watching the race, and for all the people in the grandstands, thank you. I think they play quite a big role in it as well. Otherwise, they wouldn't be streaming it anymore if there's nobody watching. All of the sponsors are all involved, making everything possible, and the team, the drivers, everybody. It was a good race. It wasn't Imola, close to Imola. All the hypers, they were waiting. We were waiting, giving space. It was a lekker race.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it.
Absolutely wonderful. David van Wyk, congratulations on your second place in the LMGT3 field. A fantastic drive on his part, but there can only be one winner, and that goes to his teammate, Jan Bloknoot, the only GT3 car not to pit in the race. How are you feeling on your victory?
Hello, Stephen. Yeah, it's good to be back with you. Yeah, and what can I call it? A podcast.
I tend to call it the bird's nest of all things because I get to see all the action here. But, I mean, take us through the race, because a DNF in round 1, a first place in round 2, and a dominating victory in round 3, and managing to drive without needing to put fuel in the car to see it through to the end.
Yeah, at the start of the race, it seemed like quite a mountain to go. And yeah, I pushed a little bit in the start just to maintain, keep Estienne out of the slip. So yeah, and I saw he came back to me, and I pushed for another 2 laps or so, and I started falling below my target I need to reach. And then, yeah, from then after Estienne had an accident with, I think, playing hands, then I had a bit of breather, and yeah, I just lifted in coast like, I don't know, I didn't even know it's possible to keep pace and save that much fuel going.
Well, it was still an incredible drive. How was it out there with the battling hypercars? We got to see the likes of Brandon Kruger and the likes of Martin Jacobs brawling with one another. They got a little bit close to you. Did you feel at any point that your race is in the hands of other drivers, or did you feel there's more than enough room to play with to not have the hypercars coming into the side of you?
Yeah, luckily it made it easy because I didn't have a battle up front, so I could have spent more time in my rearview mirror checking who's coming and what's happening. So I moved out of the way, and then I have some words with Brandon, seeing what he's trying to do, so I don't impede him for his fight with Martin. And then yeah, that smoking rocket was a bit fast, I heard from Brandon. He couldn't keep up with him for a few sectors, but yeah, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't that difficult managing the faster guys to go through.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Just going and putting some more points in for the championship. Before I let you go to enjoy the celebrations with the RTA team after a dominating victory here tonight, anything you'd like to say to all the drivers and teams that were out on the track tonight, and those watching from the virtual grandstands, to the sponsors and the admins, and most importantly, our amazing petrol heads in the virtual grandstands?
First off, just thank you for being the voice of the sim races, and thanks to all the sponsors for making this enjoyable for us, and then the guys coming in the grandstands for supporting us, and hope we can put up a show for you guys. Always lovely to do that. And then to the boys, well done on the podiums, and most important, well done to David for conquering this mountain. He seemed impossible.
Absolutely. And, well, Jan Bloknoot, congratulations on your victory and on a stellar drive out there. Looking forward to seeing what you can do in round 4 and replicating what we just saw in Portimão.
All right, cheers, Stephen. Have a good night.
Johan Blicknote taking the victory. And Herman saying thank you very much. You're welcome. But I know Johan Blicknote, just keeping in touch with that little bit of skill, has brought his way to the top to take a victory in our LMGT3 field. That being said, let's move on to our LMP3s as we got Jean Verveers coming to have a chat to us. Mr. Verveers, welcome to the commentary box. A little bit of a busy race at the beginning, then towards the end you had Dion Kopp around you, but a little bit of a lonely middle. How are you feeling after the race?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Sorry that I missed you last week. My apologies. But yeah, glad to be back this week. Yeah, a nice race. Positive at least for me qualifying in front of Kyle. So that was nice. Promising for the races to come, getting to grips with the car and a bit more of the handling around it. And then, yeah, great pressure from him in the beginning of the race. He made me sweat until I made a small mistake, and then when I was behind him, starting to close back in on him, just got a little too eager on the go fast foot on one of the many like very slippery, feels like Portimão traction zones. Spun it around, and then from there decided, let's just get it home, get it safe. The GT3s were quite tricky to maneuver around on this track because they're quite good on the brakes with ABS, whereas we don't really have ABS, so very, very, very tricky to get around them on the tight and twisty track. So yeah, just decided to bring it home, but yeah, it was a good race. Lonely in the end, but the start was very fun to race, Kyle.
I want to go back to that qualifying because we were watching it. The clock was done. It was a last lap run. And it looked like Kyle Oosthuizen had it. You got close with the lap time 2 laps prior, but the final lap, beating him out by 0.1 of a second. What went through your mind when suddenly you cross the line and you hear you got pole position after just frantically trying to fight for any sort of pace on the circuit?
Yeah, I think I was very happy, obviously, number one. It feels like in these LMP3s, they have a really torrid time, like the first lap or two, getting the tires warm. It feels like they just take forever. And then, yeah, it's about heating them up properly. So the tire prep is quite important. And then, yeah, it kind of feels like if you've done that, it pays dividends later on in the run, and it just came together magically somehow. The car stuck when I was on throttle, so yeah, just could push and really out of that last corner, keep the foot flat over the crest and send it. So yeah, when I got out of that corner and my delta kept dropping, and yeah, was very happy to cross and inch him out of a pole. So yeah, glad about that.
Well, you managed to break the streak, which is definitely a hard one to go for. But all eyes towards championship. What's the game plan heading into round 4 now that you got a little bit more pace, a little bit more motivation, and a little bit more momentum heading into the rest of the championship?
Yeah, 100%. I think just to keep building on this momentum that I've gained now between the weeks, getting more comfortable in the car, and try and close down that gap to Kyle, and then hopefully not just the quali and get out the podium for the win as well. So that's definitely the goal for next week. Let's see how it goes. Kyle's definitely fast, and yeah, big ups to him. I think we kept it good, hard, clean racing in the start. We both gave each other space. So yeah, it was a pleasure to race against him.
Well, absolutely wonderful, wonderful stuff. Before I let you go to enjoy the celebrations after some great racing out there, anything you want to say to the drivers and teams out on the circuit, to the sponsors here at RaceFace.Pro, but most importantly, to everyone out in the virtual grandstand that's followed you around the world thus far?
Yeah, thanks to everybody tuning in and watching. We really appreciate all the eyes, all the family and friends looking. So yeah, it's great. Thanks to you guys for commentating and broadcasting that as well. I think without you, it would just be cars going in a circle, and you guys give it the voice. So thank you to you guys as well, and as well as the sponsors for making that possible, and then to my team Delta Negative for pushing me to get get the delta negative and hopefully more quali poles in the future. Thanks.
I'm sure it's more to come. Congratulations on your second place. Jean-Fierre's putting in a stellar effort. That being said, another dominating run coming in for top of the LMP3s. Carl Oosthuizen of Team RTA. Welcome to the commentary box. Another hard-fought drive. This time round, having to start from second place. How are you feeling after this race?
Yeah, I had a good race. The beginning was a lot of fun with Joan. We had a good race there for a good couple of laps. Unfortunately, the LMP3 is quite a handful around Portimão, so unfortunately, Joan lost it, and then yeah, it was pretty plain sailing to the end. But I really enjoyed having that fight, and I look forward to having a good couple more fights for the rest of the season.
Now, I do want to go back to qualifying because you were just climbing out of the car, taking the helmet off, getting ready to have a cool down right before the race. When you look towards boards, you see suddenly lap time beaten. What was running through your head at that moment when suddenly you're now starting from second place? Something we haven't seen you do in this class and something that you experienced very little of when you're racing in the LMGT3s last season.
To be honest, I saw the time and it was very, very close. I checked the split times and I saw there, okay, I'm a little bit quicker here, a little bit quicker there. But in the last sector, Joan was absolutely flying. And with that long right-hander, I knew there was going to be a problem in the race. But I wasn't worried more than I was excited. I enjoy racing more than anything, more than pole position, more than anything really. So yeah, when I saw he put in the time, I was like, okay, because the time I put in was the best that I could manage without looping the car. So when he beat me, I was like, okay, we're gonna have a good race, and yeah, I was excited for it.
Well, it was some good racing, and we've got to point out as well, you were taking a little bit more of a cautious approach around the LMGT3 cars, considering you're relatively the same pace through the corners, you both got similar horsepower, you're a little bit lighter. What was your approach? Because it seemed like for the other prototype cars, it was get past quickly. For you, you didn't mind sitting back that little bit. Was it more on the lines of maintaining your race, or was it more on the lines of trying to keep some aero on the front of the car, as you pointed out, not to go and have the car get a little bit too unsteady, considering it's a handful to start off with?
My plan is just avoid the LMGT3s at all costs. And Portimão is a weird track because you got corners going in the relatively same direction, one after another. So cars are going from the left side of the track to the right side, back to the left. And we've got very little top-end pace over the GT3, so I couldn't just blast past them. We're worse on the brakes. And in the slow stuff, it's terrible. And for me, I was really struggling to the final corner. So any sort of front-end damage just would have ruined my race, would have ruined it further. So I was just keeping it clean, rather lose 1 second in the lap than have damage going forward and I lose 1.5 seconds every lap, even though I'm going flat out.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, a great, phenomenal run and managing to fight your way through to the end. What is the game plan heading into round 4, leading out the championship? You've got some space to play with compared to the rest of the field. What's your game plan?
Game plan is just go flat, see what happens, hope for the best. Should be a longer race, so might actually have to do a pit stop, which will be a nice change of pace. Just hoping a lot more guys pitch up for the next round in LMP3. It's a bit of a shame when there's only 3 of us on track, because, worst case scenario, I get a podium. So hopefully more guys come there for Sebring. It's a fantastic track to race at. It's a lot more racing friendly than Portimão, and yeah, just go out there and have some fun.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Before I let you go, anything you want to say to the drivers and teams out on the circuit, to all the sponsors, and most importantly, to all the fans out in the virtual grandstands?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again, RaceFace, for organizing everything, all the sponsors for making the streams possible, the service possible. It's not free, so it is highly appreciated. To everyone watching the stream, thanks for cheering on your favorite drivers. And then to my team, good job, guys. David, good job on the P2. Johan, no stopping, getting the win. It's a big congratulations. Brandon, finally the tide is turning his way on the podium. Yaku is just a bit unlucky there, and Esteban also unlucky, but we'll come back stronger for the next round, and yeah, we'll go flat.
Absolutely great stuff. Carl Oosthuizen coming in for a chat in the victory of our LMP3. That being said, we got a couple of more drivers to go through, and we're going to bring in our third place car, the smoking bandit himself, Mon Jacobs in the Cadillac. A third place for you, and a very, very difficult race. First of all, did you know that your car was pluming smoke out more than a vapor?
Yes, I did realize that. I checked my mirrors and I was like, why? Why is there smoke? And then I realized what was the problem. My engine temps were through the roof. And then to manage the engine temps, I just started to short shifting and starting to lift and coast. And that actually fixed the problem.
Well, you're fighting with high engine temperatures and flat on the gas. You had Brandon Kruger for a long time fighting tooth and nail around you. It was just neck and neck. What was going through your mind at the moment? Because it looked like traffic wasn't playing into your hands. The engine wasn't playing into your hands. You had Brandon who was snapping at your heels for quite some time, eventually managing just to eke out past. But it just looked like all the cards dealt to you was the hardest in the box.
Yeah, it was not a fun race. It was really scary to fight through traffic and with Kruger behind me. With the engine temps through the roof, it wasn't fun, but I actually managed to pull it through and get a podium.
Well, a third place keeps you alive for the championship fight, as Gerrit Bukes was lying ahead of you. This time around is going to be a little bit further back. Round 4, a bit closer for second place. What's the game plan to making sure, 1, the car's going to work out well, 2, to keep the competition behind you? Because as we saw tonight, Brandon Kruger is not willing to back down. We saw last race, you and Chris Stolz were nose to tail with one another. Johan Kleinans is getting involved in the mix as well. What is your game plan heading into round 4, knowing second place is on the line?
It's just keeping the racing clean and just remember to change the setup before the race so I don't have any engine problems again. Yeah, but we still aiming to get my first win. It's definitely possible still in the season. And yeah, the championship is really going to be tight. So yeah, just need to see what happens. Just keep the racing clean.
Well, absolutely great stuff. Before I let you go to enjoy the celebration and to assist the team removing the motor that you managed to cook, is there anything you want to say to anyone out in the virtual grandstands, to the drivers and teams that were out on the circuit today?
I want to just say thank you for joining in the live and then watching our race. And yeah, just want to say thank you for everyone. Yeah, thanks for commentating. It's brilliant, but yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Mon Jacobs taking third place here tonight in our Hypercar class, and will be moving himself up to second in the championship. Brandon Kruger, we did have for a little bit, unfortunately had to leave, and it's getting rather late here in South Africa. Congratulations to him for a second place for the RTA team, and putting himself back onto the podium after a long, long time away from it. But let's bring in our first place of the Hypercars. The one and only Peugeot for the last 3 seasons have been dominant. Crystals, welcome to the commentary box. And what a fight that you had, having to get the jump off a line at the start of the race. You had the fastest lap time in qualifying, but traffic became a scary moment for you, as we saw quite a few times you had to slam on the anchors midway through a corner.
Yeah, no, Stephen, definitely the traffic was very tricky today. I knew coming into the race that it would be tricky, and it turned out to be the case. But yeah, a couple hairy moments, but luckily enough, we got through it cleanly and was able to win the race. So yeah, really happy with that.
It was a great one to see, and take us through. We saw the track was extremely hot. It was busy out there. It's a high-speed circuit. Naturally, you've said the Peugeot battles with these high-speed circuits. What was the difference here tonight to try and open that gap, to keep that consistency, plus to give that little bit more of a push to open the distance between yourself and the rest of the field?
No, actually, the high speed corners and just the nature of this track is actually really good for the Peugeot. It's just like the straight line speed where the Peugeot really struggles. But this is probably the Peugeot's strongest track, and definitely my strongest track. So I barely did any practice for this week, and just started doing a couple laps last night, and that was pretty much it. So it is very little for me, but I feel very comfortable on this track, and with this car it feels really good. So no, I was really happy with the way the car felt. Really happy with the performance that we have here at Portimão. It won't be obviously every week, but yeah, no, the car is just very strong here, and really a pleasure to drive, honestly.
And with that being said, Sebring, 80 minutes next week. What's the game plan to keep ahead of the field? We've seen you fight out against the Cadillac, just trying to keep it going. Brandon Kruger's back in for the fight. Jürgen Kleinans is back in for the fight. It seems like we're in for a rather tricky race come round 4 next week, and especially over 80 minutes where pit stops are going to become extremely crucial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the grid is really close. I think Brandon was like within 3/10 today, so it just goes to show how close it is. And yeah, it was a tight battle with Jan as well, with the traffic, and they closed up and definitely put me under pressure. So everyone's really close with the pace, and going into Sebring, I think obviously bumpy track, really demanding to drive an 80-minute stint there, so it's going to be tricky for sure. We'll see how it goes and see what the weather holds, and yeah, just try to do our best and see what happens. Everyone is like I said, very quick and very close. So yeah, we just do our best, focus on ourselves, and see what we can do.
Absolutely wonderful stuff, and congratulations yet again getting a victory. Is there anything you want to say to all the teams and drivers that are out on the track or watching in, some not able to make the race this evening, but also to the sponsors and everyone out in the virtual grandstands that was cheering on a race that was battles from hypercars straight through to our LM GT3s?
Yeah, I mean, as per usual, thanks to you, Stephen, for the stream, and the sponsors, and everyone who makes this possible, and yeah, also the drivers. There wouldn't be a race without the drivers, so thanks guys for spending your time to join us and in our league and race here, and I hope you had fun. And then just a shout out to my dad and my girlfriend, who are always watching and supporting. And then also to Jan, who unfortunately had a bit of a unlucky incident and lost some positions there. He definitely had the pace for second place, and he had a good performance. So yeah, just shout out to my teammate.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Delta Negative going and putting in the effort here tonight. Crystal takes a victory in the Peugeot 9X8 and extends his lead in the hypercars for the season. But next week we head over to Sebring, 18 minutes for round 4 of the RaceFace.Pro LMU Championship. And it's been an absolute wonderful time being on air tonight. But tomorrow we head over to our ACC GT3 Championship for round 2. And it's going to be showing off our Pro and Pro-Am in one broadcast, our gold and silver in another, as we look to go side by side yet again. Who's going to be able to walk away with the crown in the EG Evolved RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the bell notification icon as well. Leave a like and let us know what was your favorite moment of the race. It really does help with the algorithm here on YouTube, especially for sim racing. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a massive thank you to all the drivers and teams racing here tonight, especially a thank you to all our sponsors, the likes of EG Evolved, Simulator Cave, Virtual Motorheads, SBR, and Rhino Utility coming on board to be a part of this amazing championship. And we're looking forward to seeing how it's all going to turn out for the final LMU Championship here in RaceFace.Pro for 2025. Catch us tomorrow night. And a big thank you to the team here with Tim out on our cameras, Jim, who is going and keeping an eye on the flags, and myself, Stephen Koenig. We wish you well. And like always, a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.